I'm John Skinner, and this supports Chapter 4 in my book, Fishing the Bucktail. In this video, I'm using the top bucktail. That's a 2-ounce Andrus rip splitter, and it's tipped with a strip of number 50 Uncle Josh pork rind. Here's a quick look at the retrieve, and I'll have much more to say about that as we go along. Now, to me, these are very exciting conditions. You can't see the wave height, but on the weather buoys, it's reading about 10 feet, and those waves are breaking on an outer bar. The wind speed is about 30 miles an hour, and to me, these are just prime striper conditions. I drove several miles down the beach to get to this spot, and what I couldn't understand is that this was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The fishing had recently been good. There was not one single line in the water. There were 2 or 3 trucks that were rolling around looking. Not one person was fishing, and I looked at this and said, oh, this just looks fantastic. And what I did was, because it was so windy and rough, there were a lot of areas where it was just like pure white water, and I drove to a place where there was a little bit of a trough, and there was this bar, and I looked for a spot where I could reach that bar and set up on that, walked out, first cast in, and this turns out to be a very nice trip. And I mentioned the wind speed at about 30 miles an hour, and you're going to be able to hear it on many parts of the video. And I'm facing basically south here, and this is a southwest wind. As mentioned, I'm using a 2-ounce Andrus rip splitter bucktail, and under normal circumstances this bucktail is too heavy for this fishing. I said this is a trough. There's at most about 10 feet of water on the end of my cast, but as I'm working closer, obviously the water is getting shallower, and most of the time I'm probably in more like 4 feet of water. And a 2-ounce bucktail under those circumstances is basically going to be dragging bottom. But when you're faced with a situation like this where it's a strong onshore wind and it's rough, you need to go to a heavier bucktail. If you compare this video to other bucktailing videos that I have, you'll see that I'm twitching the rod a lot more here. And actually what I'm doing is, as I mentioned, I feel that this bucktail is a little bit too heavy for this water, and I am in fact tapping bottom once in a while, and when I feel that bottom tap, I'm just giving it a twitch. I don't really want to be dragging through the sand, so when I feel bottom, I'm going to just pick up the retrieve a little bit, give it a little bit of twitch, try to keep it off the bottom. Now, you saw the retrieve speed at the very beginning of the video, and that probably looks a little bit faster than on my other videos, and it is in fact a little bit faster than I would normally be retrieving a bucktail. But again, I've got a bucktail that I consider to be a little bit heavier than I'd like to use. However, if I use a lighter weight one, I'm simply not going to be able to reach that white water. Now, even though I felt it was important to be reaching that white water, as it turned out, a lot of my hits came in very close to the beach, almost right along that beach lip underneath where that first wave breaks. Some things that are not that clear from the video. One is that the water is actually a little bit stained. It's not perfectly clear. I mean, it's been blowing hard all day. Those are big waves out on that outer bar, and things are churned up a little bit, but it's not what I would consider to be dirty. There's just a touch of weed. Another thing that doesn't show up that well is these waves that are coming in and crashing on the beach. They're actually a little bit bigger than they look here, and creating a fair amount of turbulence, and also there's somewhat of a sweep. So even though I could reach a fair number of those fish that are in tight, I could reach those with a lighter weight bucktail like a 1-ounce. The 2-ounce, once it got into that turbulence near the shore, was really the perfect weight right there. I crushed the barb on these jigs, so they come out pretty easy. You might be able to tell here that these waves are creating a fair amount of undertow, and between that and the waves themselves, the retrieve speed is actually quite variable. So when there's a wave pushing the bucktail, I'm speeding up a little bit. When the jig is coming in real tight to the beach and you've got that undertow going out, I'm almost holding it steady right in that turbulence line. So, even though you saw some kind of retrieve speed there in the beginning of the video, that retrieve is definitely changing depending on the wave action, undertow, and so forth. The fish is definitely using the undertow to its advantage here, and I just need to be a little bit patient. So the edge of the clouds have pushed through, and as it did that, I actually had a little bit of a lull for about 20 minutes. I didn't get any hits, and what I was doing is after each fish I was wiping the camera lens, and that's why it was staying clear, but no hits for 20 minutes. I've got a little bit of film on the camera there, but you'll still be able to see this okay. That one hit right on the edge of the whitewater, and this is actually the biggest fish of the trip. The rod is an 11-footer built on a Lamiglass GSB 1321M blank, and I built this myself using NGC principles. It's new guide concept. So I've actually got a relatively small gathering guide on there, 40 millimeters, and then a lot of little guides on the top, and the end result is a very lightweight rod that's nice for open beach fishing. Now I have a older 11-footer built on a GSB 1321M Lamiglass blank. I built it in 1990, and that rod is completely different than this one. The specs have changed a little bit over the years, and that's a much more heavy-duty rod. I use it on the jetties bucktailing. This one was built, I believe I built it in 2006, and it's a much nicer plugging rod. The reel is a Penn 706Z, and it's spooled with 30-pound test spider wire stealth. At the end of the braid I have about a 3-foot leader of 50-pound test fluorocarbon. The braid is joined to the leader with a barrel swivel, and I have a tactical angler's clip at the end where the bucktail is attached. I'll be quiet for the rest of this fish, and you'll be able to hear how hard that wind is blowing. Here's a still camera picture of that fish. Okay, the lens is cleared off again, and we're going to just do one more fish on this video. It might be worth noting that the day that followed this one was actually one of my best days of the entire fall. I had hours and hours of fish like you've seen on this trip. However, it wasn't in this location. I actually ended up starting here that day, not doing all that well, and then moving about 15 miles or so and got into them real good. But yeah, these storm waves definitely generated some good fishing. This video is actually a third in a four-part series of sand bucktailing videos. The first one was calm conditions, the second one was calm surf but a hard onshore wind. Then there's this one, and then the last one, which will be posted a little bit after I get this one uploaded, will be on actually the day after this when I was fishing swells. So I'm done narrating this one, and enjoy this last fish, and thanks for watching.